Hi, Tau Epsilon Phi. This is Jason Burler, the president of the TEP Foundation, coming to you to tell you about our new series called the TEP Founders Series. This new podcast, being hosted by the TEP Foundation, encapsulates the stories of either founders or refounding fathers of their chapter. This new series serves to continue the charitable purpose of our nonprofit by preserving and advancing Tau Epsilon Phi history. This new podcast was recorded in the summer of 2024 and is being hosted by our guest, Trustee, Brother Stanley Silverman, Tau Omega 73. We hope you watch all the episodes to learn valuable insights into your chapter's founding or refounding. If you are or know of any founders or refounders, please send an email to president@thetepfoundation.org. We want to capture your chapter's history. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you learn a lot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Founders Podcast, the podcast where we interview founders and refounders of TEP chapters. I'm Stan Silverman, Tau Omega 402, University of Rhode Island, class of 79. And I'm here with Manny Diner, Phi Beta number 1, University of South Florida, class of 69. So without further ado, here we go.
Okay. All right.
So how are you today?
I'm doing fine, thanks, Stan. How are you?
Good. Is that Hurricane Beryl going to hit you?
No, I'm not in Mexico, please. No. No. We're good. The only thing is, the only bad weather we had was yesterday. You know, the Panthers won the Stanley Cup. So yesterday they had a parade down A1A on the ocean, and it was storming throughout the whole thing. There were hundreds of thousands of people out there getting totally drenched. But
you know what?
Yeah.
If my Yankees won the World Series and I got drenched, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's what these people said. They were there since the night before, getting a good spot and everything else. Hundreds of thousands. And they said they didn't care. First of all, they're right near the beach. We're used to being out in warm weather. So if they get wet, it's like going to the beach. It's no big deal.
Sure, who cares?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So what town you went to? The University of South Florida in Tampa, right?
That's correct.
And where do you live now?
I live in Pembroke Pines, Florida. It's a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. And basically, I lived in South Florida all my life.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. You were like, it was frozen. There was nothing moving and no voice.
And most people tell me that they can hear my voice even when they don't wish to.
So, I've been told that as well. So we have something in common.
Okay. So when year of school were you in when you started the TEP chapter?
I was at the end of my, was it sophomore year? 66. It was the end of my freshman year, beginning of my sophomore year.
Okay.
And the chapter was, we got the charter in 1967, and that would have been my sophomore year. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, all right. So you started in 66, and then you got the charter in 67, correct?
That's correct. We had, actually in 66, there were only local fraternities, and they were in the process of going national. And none of the ones that existed on campus appealed to me or to any of my close friends. There were no Jewish chapters or fraternities. And so we decided to form our own, and it became a local fraternity before going national. But we knew all along from the very beginning that we were going to go TEP. In fact, when we formed the local fraternity, one of the brothers came up with the Greek letters Chi Sigma Rho, and that was stood for kosher. So they, it was an inside joke that we were the Jewish fraternity on campus. and we were very well received from the beginning.
Well, that's great. So how long were you a local before you became a national?
Less than a year. The locals started reaching out to nationals in the end of April or spring of '66, and that's when we formed. But we were very fortunate, and actually I didn't know how then that I know what I know now, but we were very, very fortunate to have had Sid Sontag be our mentor. He came down often and guided us and helped us get the charter. So by the April of '67, we got the charter.
Well, that's great. So you're Phi Beta 1?
Yep.
How did you get that distinction?
I was the first chancellor.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, I was the first chancellor, and I was one of 3 or 4 of the guys that put it together. It was my idea, along with a few others.
Okay. How big was your beginning group?
Well, the charter class was probably around, if I recall, about 20 to 25, but we grew very rapidly. By the time I graduated during my senior year, our chapter had over 100 brothers.
Wow.
Yeah. We
What
really
percentage? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we really not only grew, but we made our mark on the campus.
What percentage of the 100 were Jewish?
70%.
Okay.
Yeah, 60 to 70%,
Okay.
at least, maybe more.
And so you went with TEP. You could have gone with AE Pi. You could have gone with ZBT. Why did you go with TEP?
Well, we didn't want to go with well, the main reason why we went with TEP was we had very good friends and others, I guess friends, who were members, brothers at the Tau Alpha chapter in the University of Florida that was very close by. And other chapters in the Southeast region would that we had friends in those chapters as well. We had reached out, and ZBT, there was another group starting a ZBT chapter around the same time. So that was out the window. And our connection was with TEP all along because of the local or the nearby very, very successful chapters. Tau Alpha, I think, used to have like 200 brothers at the time. They were huge, and they were like one of the top fraternities on campus. So we wanted to emulate them. And then when we reached out, I don't know if we reached out or he reached out to us, but when we got in contact with Sid Sontag, I mean, that clinched it. He was terrific. He was great.
Oh, that's great. I met Sid. He was a very warm, engaging fellow.
Yeah, he was. He was.
May he rest in peace.
He was the real thing. He was the real thing. No bullshit, no phoniness. He was the real thing. And he, as far as I was concerned, he was Mr. TEP.
So what were the highlights of starting a new chapter?
Well, there's some highlights and some lowlights as well. I mean, the probably the biggest highlight, long lasting, was making these tremendous bonds and friendships that over the years have lasted. And my best friends now are still my fraternity brothers. We've known each other for over 50 years. We go out together, we cruise together, we celebrate together, we mourn together. And that was one of the biggest things. Now, at the time, the highlight was being part of something new, getting in from the ground up, and seeing the fruits of our labor very, very quickly. We were accepted on campus. We were accepted in the Greek world on campus, especially. Our growth certainly helped. And we had student leaders from our chapter that made their mark on campus. I became president of the IFC, and one of our brothers, my contemporary, Terry Aidman, who passed away a few years ago, he was the treasurer. So we were very well accepted in the Greek community, and we grew to one of the most successful fraternities on campus. So that accomplishment, I guess, to me was a highlight that I can always take with me. And the more lasting one is the friendships that I made.
No, I certainly understand that, and I treasure that as well.
Yeah.
What were some of your biggest challenges in starting a new chapter?
The first one is not being known, obviously, and having to get our name out. But more physically, there was a logistical problem. We didn't have houses on campus, and those existing local fraternities which went national, some of the big ones, SAE, Sigma Nu, Pike, all of the big ones had floors inside the dorms dedicated to them, or they basically filled up the floor. In fact, I was a resident assistant, an RA, on the I'm not sure if it was Phi Delta or Sigma Nu. I was their RA, but we had none, and we had brothers scattered all over campus. And in fact, we covered two campuses. USF had two campuses at the time, the one in Tampa and the one that I think still exists in St. Petersburg, which is about an hour away. And they had, housing facilities there too. But that was a problem, getting everybody together and for meetings and for events. There was no problem getting people together for parties, but getting people together for meetings and for intramurals, for example, getting guys to come over from St. Pete who were athletes and integrating them with the ones in Tampa. So these are the physical things, but they were fairly short-lived.
Excuse my ignorance, did you ever go with two separate chapters due to the fact that you were on two separate campuses?
No, never even dawned on us. Number one, it was still USF. It was the Tampa main campus and St. Petersburg, I guess, I don't know what you call it, branch campus. And there weren't enough students at the St. Pete location to justify. They didn't have any fraternities in St. Pete. They were all centered in Tampa.
Okay.
It was a growing school. It was a very growing school. Now it's got 60,000 students. So it's a pretty big campus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did your founding experience assist you with your professional career?
Well, the obvious one is that it gave me confidence. It gave me confidence in, from an organizational standpoint, handling matters, organizing matters, in my profession and in my outside life. It helped me when I went on the board of my synagogue and ultimately became president of the congregation. So the confidence and the leadership experience that I had at TEP really helped me tremendously as I grew. It also helped me in my speaking, not only on a one-to-one basis, but in public. So just the responsibility overall of dealing with so many aspects of the fraternity helped me in real life, in my career, in my religious life, in my social life. So I'm very, very grateful for my experiences at TEP.
Well, that's great to hear. While we're on that subject, so you're an attorney, correct?
That's what they tell me.
Where did you go to law school?
I went to the University of Miami Law School. I toyed with the idea of going up north, but by the time I graduated and got into law school, I was already engaged to be married to my same wife that I'm still with today, 50,
Okay.
50 some odd years later. So it would have been difficult for us, for me just to pick up and go. Plus, financially, um, and I did apply and I got accepted to NYU and to, what else did I get? I forget some of the law schools in New York, but I just couldn't afford it at the time. So I went to University of Miami, was fortunate to get a scholarship there and a job as a graduate assistant, and I worked my way through law school.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Yeah,
So you graduated what year?
1969.
Okay. Oh, that was that was
Yeah,
a scary time for a young man in America.
it was a very scary time because of the draft and the Vietnam War, but it was also a very exciting time. I mean, there was so much going on. Um, Drugs came in, it became prevalent. Uh, but I didn't get involved with that. But some of our brothers did. And we had so much going on during that time. We had Woodstock. In fact, Woodstock um, took place the week of my honeymoon, and I was in Jamaica. Had it not been for that, I probably would have been at Woodstock. So the music, the peace movement, and the feminist movement, the civil rights movement, all of that happened during my college years. So I'm very, very grateful for having had that experience as a college student. Because as I tell, you know, young people today, my one advice is enjoy every bit of the 4 or 5 years or however long it takes you to graduate, because that's probably going to be, if not the most exciting time in your life, one of them. And it's by far, to me, it was four of the best years of my life. I can't say the best years because I had family, I had children, I had other aspects of my life that were very rewarding. But my 4 years in college and as a TEP stand up there probably as number one or number two.
Well, that's great to hear. 69 was also when we walked on the moon.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We walked on when I was a senior, at that time, the draft had deferments from the draft. Medical school, at that time, they had law school and some other graduate schools. That year, they did away with the law school deferments. And so I knew that I didn't want to serve immediately because I was getting married the summer of my after graduation, and I was already admitted to law school. And two of my brothers, my fraternity brothers, were in a similar position. So the three of us registered for advanced ROTC and wound up going on a basic training summer at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I got out 2 days before my wedding. And while we were there, that's when they walked on the moon, 1969. So it was, like I said, it was a very eventful time in my life.
Yeah, it certainly was. I had a cousin who was in the reserves in basic training, and somebody wanted to get off for a wedding. And the sergeant said, if they really cared for you, they wouldn't have scheduled it while you were at basic training. Yeah, no sense of humor about those
No,
things.
not at all. Not at all. Well, I just very briefly, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and you probably want to edit this out, but honestly, when we went into the ROTC, Army ROTC, and it was in the height of 1969, the height of the war, we had the three of us wound up being in the same platoon, and we decided that we needed to observe the Sabbath. It was very important to us to observe Shabbat. So we told the company commander that, and while we were in formation early in the morning, the first Saturday, he drove up in his station wagon. He said, "Diner, Michigan, Rissman, in my car," and he took us to the Jewish chaplain on campus. And to us, this place was like a palace. It was a double wide trailer, but it was like a palace. He said, "This is yours for the day. Take whatever you want, eat whatever you want, call your family if you want, whatever you want. And the guy will pick you up at the end of the day." Well, we took advantage of it, but the next day, our drill sergeant, who was some redneck from the Panhandle, got up in our faces in formation and started singing "Hey Jude." Yeah. So we had some interesting experiences. I mean, we persevered. We didn't complain about that. We got extra duty, but it was worth it. It was worth it. We stuck together.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you have any involvement with TEP now, whether it's with National or TEP Foundation, or your chapter's no longer there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that story is very sad because we had such a vibrant chapter. We were very saddened to hear that it just folded for lack of interest and lack of finances or whatever. Also, lack of national assistance and direction. But we do have involvement, not necessarily with national as much, but with the alumni that we basically formed over the years. In fact, I organized and hosted a 50th anniversary reunion on the campus. And we had at that time, we must have had at least 150 brothers there.
Wow.
Yeah, and some spouses, some girlfriends or whatever. We had about 150, and we had a blast. And many of the guys rekindled some of the friendships that they had found and lost. And then 5 years later, one of the other brothers picked up the slack and the flag basically, and organized another reunion here in Hollywood. And we had probably close to 100 guys there over the weekend. We spent the weekend on the beach having good time. And there was the younger generation. It was guys like maybe in their 50s, late 50s, or even early 50s. So we all stay in touch. In fact, we have a group from our contemporaries, my contemporaries, that get together. It's about 6 or 7 brothers with our spouses. And a lot of them were either charter brothers or first pledge class brothers. We get together in each other's homes every 2 or 3 months, and we just circulate and choose a different house each time. So my involvement with TEP or TEP chapter has been that. Unfortunately, National has not given us any direction, perhaps because we don't have an active chapter. I hate to say this, and I hope he doesn't take it the wrong way, but I've spoken to Tim Smith a few times about the desire, because we have a tremendous desire to go back on campus. And we didn't get kicked out or anything like that. It just fizzled out. And we have members who are members of the past members of the Board of Trustees at the university. So we have contacts there, and we would love to do something about it. And when I mentioned it to Tim, he said that the university doesn't want any more Greeks on campus. I don't know if that's necessarily true, if we could come up with a program, because I know that we can get enough prospective members, brothers, to reorganize it. I know between our alumni and people at Tau Alpha have people or friends that are going to USF. They would love nothing more than to organize the Phi Beta chapter again. So I'm hopeful that maybe in my lifetime, what's left of it, that we'll see the chapter back on campus.
All right, wish you the best of luck. Maybe this will stir something up and we'll get some movement on your request.
I would love nothing more than that.
Okay. So are you still working full time now?
No, I work 3 days a week. My office is 5 or 10 minutes from my home, and I've slowed down considerably. I have select number of clients that I have kept, and I have not, done any more. The other 2 days I spend with my wife. Unfortunately, she has some health issues, but we try to spend as much time as we can together. And slowly but surely, I will retire. I don't know when. I'm not used to being idle. I will be 77 in November, and I really have no desire to. I like to keep my mind busy. In fact,
That's good.
I spoke to a couple of brothers, and I told them, I said, listen, if I can do anything to help the chapter go back on campus, you can count on me. I'll be in Tampa in a couple hours.
We'll have to start working on that. I'll get on as a matter of fact, I have to speak to some people in the next couple of days, and let's see what we can get moving on that.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
do you have any?
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So do you have any message to the chapters that are in business or to the undergraduates who are in school right now?
Well, like I said earlier, my message is enjoy the years that you have on campus. It's the most growth years that you will probably have in your lifetime in terms of intellectual growth, social growth, personal growth, and whatever else you experience in college. This is the time when you have no responsibilities but to yourself. And if you take advantage of it, it'll be there for you and with you for the rest of your life.
No, that's a wonderful message, and you're right. You have a chance to grow, to make mistakes, and to learn from it, and to just keep on going. And that's a wonderful
Absolutely.
message.
Absolutely. And the other part of it, as I mentioned before, also, some of these guys, you're not going to stay in touch with all your fraternity brothers, but a handful of them, if you play your cards right and you're smart about it, they will be your best friends for life. I have a blood family, and I'm grateful for that. But my wife and I always talk about having a chosen family. And my chosen family are TEPs. And in fact, my wife says the same thing. I know they're not supposed to have them anymore, but we used to have little sisters group, which was like an auxiliary of the chapter. And all the wives were little sisters 50 some odd years ago. They look a lot different now, but they were part of our lives, and they feel the same way.
That's great. That's great. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to cover?
No, I think we've covered it. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I'm really honored. I don't know why you would want to deal with me. I'm not a distinguished personality or celebrity in the community. I think I've done my part. I've contributed locally in terms of service to my synagogue, to the community. But I'm like most other people. I am deeply honored and humbled by your decision to reach out to me.
Well, I thank you very much. It's why shouldn't we honor the people who made our fraternity great?
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be great again at USF.
Let's hope so. All right, Manny. Thank you very, very much.
Thank
you have
you,
a great
Stan.
July 4th, And it's my pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise, be well and stay in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.